Hi everybody, Bill here with Tiny House Prepper. Today I want to talk to you about legal tiny houses versus illegal tiny houses. Now wait, you say, illegal tiny houses? Are tiny houses illegal? What are you talking about? Well, the simple answer to that is no, they're not. And yes, they are. Let me explain. We've watched a lot of tiny house videos on YouTube before we moved in to ours, and we still watch a lot to get ideas for saving space and that sort of thing. Many of these tiny houses that I see online are truly beautiful. I mean, oh, they're magnificent. They're gorgeous. Big cathedral ceilings and just open space, even though open feeling, even though it's a small space. I really love them. But if you notice, there may be a few that are built on a permanent foundation like a big house. There are a few that are sheds that are converted into tiny houses, but the biggest majority of them are actually built on a trailer, built on wheels. They're mobile. Why is that? Why do they do that? Well, it's because of the building codes. For the most part, tiny houses do not pass building codes. And by building it as a trailer, as an RV, if you will, it's not subject to building codes, and so that's why they're building it that way. Now don't misunderstand me. I'm not speaking out against builders of tiny houses who are building substandard housing that doesn't meet building codes. The exact opposite. In fact, I'm speaking against the building codes and the overreach of government into our lives in a place where they have no business to be. But that's for another topic, for another video. But as a builder for several decades, I know the codes and I know what's going on with them. These tiny houses that I see, like I said, are really beautiful. But let me give you a couple of examples of places where they do not meet building codes. First of all, most of them, it seems like is becoming sort of a standard floor plan to have a cathedral ceiling on one side with a loft bedroom in the back end, and because to drive down the highway it can't be more than 13 feet 6 inches without getting an oversized permit, so they can't build it tall enough to make the loft full size. So usually the ceiling in the loft is only 4 feet or 3 feet or 5 feet or whatever it is. According to the building codes, that's legal to have a loft like that if it's only going to be for storage. But if it's living space, it requires that the ceiling height be at least 6 feet 8 inches, which is actually the height of a standard doorway is 6 feet 8 inches. So those loft bedrooms that are not 6 feet 8 inches are illegal according to the building code. And also many of them have a ladder going up to it. Now a ladder is acceptable according to building codes if it's going up to a storage space like an attic, but it is not acceptable to access living space. So the ladder is out. A lot of them have steps that go up to it, and it's beautifully built steps, and they have drawers, you know, pulled out of the sides of the steps to maximize the storage space. Building codes require that any steps, that each riser of on each step be no more than 8 inches, and most of those steps are probably, I'm assuming, considerably steeper than an 8-inch riser, so those steps are probably illegal. Also, any set of steps more than 2 steps requires a railing, and I don't see railing on most of these. There are other things that don't pass the codes. I won't go into all of that, but those are just a couple of examples. As I said before, I'm not saying these are substandard, because they're not. I'm saying that the government intrusion is just ridiculous, and so we are forced to build on a trailer so that we can bypass the building codes. So then you have this tiny house, this trailer, this super duper Mondo RV, if you will. So where are you going to park it? That becomes the problem. See, the tiny house itself is not illegal because there are no codes, but parking it can be. because in most jurisdictions there are minimum square footage requirements, even like to park in a mobile home park. Most of them wouldn't allow it because it's too small for the square footage requirements. Most of the time, just parking in somebody's backyard, like a lot of them do, is illegal for zoning reasons. We had a friend who bought a really nice RV trailer for her mother who was needed to move in with her, and they didn't have room. So she bought this trailer, she put it out back, she hooked up the plumbing and the sewer and the electric right from the back of her house, and her mother moved in, lived there a couple years, it worked really well, and then the zoning officer discovered it. And I don't know if she was fined or not, but she was very definitely told that is not legal. You will vacate the trailer and you can park it there, but you can't have any of the utilities hooked up and you can't live in it. So finding a place to park it can be a real problem, to park it legally. If you notice, when you watch a lot of these videos online of tiny house tours, they go all through the tiny house and they show you this beautiful place, but they never say anything about where it's parked. Either, you know, they don't know where they're going to park it, or it's parked illegally in somebody's backyard or something like that. Another thing is that many of them talk about that they are completely off-grid. Well, some of them may do that because they really believe in being green and being completely off-grid, but I suspect that a lot more of them are off-grid because since they're parked illegally, they can't get the utilities hooked up. The power company won't hook up because it's an illegally parked trailer. So those are some of the problems that you can have with building a legal trailer, tiny house, but then having no legal place to park it. Now there are companies now that are starting to just build nothing but tiny houses, and they may have a different take on it. They may have answers, they may have local, you know, in their local area where you can park it, or the zoning is different. Of course, the zoning is different from, you know, from state to state and from county to county. So this isn't always true, but I think more than often, that's the case, that it is true, that there's no legal place to park it. Now, legal tiny houses, on the other hand, we live in a legal tiny house. We live in a little development that used to be a KOA campground, and sometime in the 70s they subdivided the campsites and sold them off as lots, and these lots have little RV trailers parked on them, and they're parked here permanently and they're parked here legally. That's what we have. We have a 32-foot trailer with a sunroom attached to it. So we have all of our water and sewer and electricity and everything. We pay property taxes on it, the whole bit. We're completely legal here. But that gives another problem, because when I moved in, we had serious problems with leaks in the roof, and I've had some problems with condensation and insulation and things like that in the roof since. If you watch some of my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. So my answer was to build a roof, a peaked roof over top of the existing one, put a shingle roof on it, and that would completely take care of the leaks. That would also allow me to add R32 insulation up above the existing roof to give me the insulation that I need for this cold climate that we're in. So I went to the township and I got the building permit, and then I went to the building officer and submitted my plans, and he said, no, you can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that? He said, those are 2x2 walls, it won't support the weight. You can't do that. Well, I don't believe him. I don't think it would be any problem supporting the weight, but he simply wouldn't let me do it. I don't think he has any jurisdiction because it's an RV. It's not a house. But he thinks he does because I'm parked here permanently and legally. So the only way I could prove it would be to take him to court over it to find out whether he does indeed have jurisdiction over any work that I do here or not. His answer was to build a roof over top of it on posts that go down to the ground, basically like building a carport over top of the existing trailer. Problem with that is then that carport has to go with building codes, which means each post has to go in this area 42 inches deep and have, you know, concrete footers down underneath, and which means bringing in a backhoe and digging too close to the trailer to actually be able to put those posts in with the backhoe, which would be really scary. And it increased the cost. The way I was going to do it was going to cost me under $1,000. The way he wanted me to do it was going to cost me probably $8,000 or more just to put this roof on it. So I didn't do that for now. I patched up the leaks with some rubberized paint, and I've had all kinds of installation and condensation problems that I'm still dealing with because the inspector won't let me do it. So I'm not really sure what my the end game here is, except just to tell you that some houses are legal, some houses are illegal. If you have a legal house like I do, you don't have any legal problems, but you can't do anything you want without the building inspector getting his nose in your face where it doesn't belong. If you have an illegal tiny house, then you can do whatever you want in the house, but you probably can't hook up to utilities, and if he discovers, if the zoning officer discovers that you're parked there, they're going to make you move it. So, pros and cons both sides. Look into your local zoning situation. Like I said, some states or some townships or counties will allow parking small trailers, some of them won't. You just have to try to deal with your local situation there, and I can't help you there. You got to go down to your township or your county and find out what the laws are. So if you're thinking about doing tiny house and you haven't really started, think about whether you want to go with a legal tiny house or an illegal tiny house, and I hope this helps. If it did, please like it and subscribe below, and God bless.